Building a successful tech company, it takes more than just a brilliant idea, right? You've got to have the right people to actually make that vision a reality. And these days, finding that perfect team, it can feel impossible. Like seriously, like trying to find a needle in a haystack.
Absolutely.
But what if you had someone like a partner who could help you navigate that haystack? Someone who knows the tech world inside and out and can connect you with the exact talent you need to really grow.
I like that.
That's what we're digging into today.
Okay.
SD Solutions. We've got all their stuff, website, case studies, everything. And we're going to figure out what makes them tick.
Cool. I'm excited.
By the end of this deep dive, you'll know exactly how they operate, what makes them different, and, most importantly, if they might be that missing piece you've been searching for.
And one of the things that really stood out to me right off the bat, looking at SD Solutions, is their approach. It's not like they're just another staffing agency just pushing through resumes, They really seem to position themselves as a partner.
Right.
Focused on building those long-term relationships. And those are crucial, especially in today's crazy business world.
Yeah, totally. And you can really see that come through on their website.
Yeah.
They talk a lot about understanding a company's DNA, like their actual culture.
Okay.
Almost as if they're trying to create like tailor-made talent solutions.
Exactly. And speaking of creating solutions, they've got this crazy impressive offer acceptance rate. 91%.
Seriously.
I know. Practically unheard of in this industry.
It's huge. I mean, what do you think leads to that kind of acceptance rate, especially with how competitive things are right now?
I think it goes back to that whole finding the right fit thing.
Yeah.
Not just for the company, but for the candidate, too.
Makes sense.
And their employee retention rate seems to back that up. It's a whopping 87%. So they're clearly doing something right to keep both sides happy.
Which is good for everyone.
Right.
Nobody wins when someone ends up in a job that's just a bad fit.
Totally.
So, okay, we know SD Solutions is all about these customized solutions, these long-term partnerships, but what are those solutions, really? Like, what does that actually look like?
Sure.
Let's start with something I'm sure a lot of our listeners have come across.
Yeah.
Staff augmentation.
Right, and this is a prime example of how SD Solutions differentiates itself. It's not just about filling a seat, it's about getting you access to really highly skilled people, often in those like niche areas that are so important in tech.
Yeah.
Like we're talking data science, DevOps, mobile development, things that are hard to find.
Oh, for sure. It's like trying to find a unicorn.
Exactly. And they actually say on their website that they have a talent pool of over 135,000 qualified candidates.
Wow. That's a lot of unicorns.
It is. They've got this huge network of specialists ready to go, which means you don't have to start from zero, You don't have to build a whole department on your own.
Right, right.
They handle all of it, the vetting, the interviews, even the onboarding. That frees you up to, actually focus on running your business.
It's like instead of scrambling to fill these really specific roles, you're just adding to your existing team, but with that exact expertise right when you need it.
Exactly. And that actually leads us to another big service they offer, business process outsourcing, or BPO. And this is where things get really interesting. A lot of companies, they hit this wall where it's not even a lack of good ideas or even the right people.
Right.
It's just the sheer amount of work.
Yeah.
All those little things that need to get done, but they take so much time.
Yeah, they can really bog you down.
Exactly. And that's where BPO comes in.
Okay, so it's about freeing up companies to focus on what they do best.
Right.
But what makes SD Solutions different when it comes to BPO? Because honestly, we've all heard those nightmare stories about outsourced services that just create more problems.
Oh, absolutely. And you're right to be wary, for sure.
Yeah.
But I think what's really interesting here is their dedication to, really tailoring the service. They're not just saying, okay, we'll take this one little task off your hands. They're looking at the whole picture, the entire business process.
Okay.
So whether it's dealing with customers directly, and support, technical stuff, even sales and marketing.
Right, right.
Or it's those back-end things, HR, payroll, IT, they handle it all.
So it's like having a whole team of experts, but without the overhead.
Exactly. And what I found really interesting is they don't just abandon that focus on fitting in with your company's culture.
Really?
Even with their BPO services.
Yeah.
They know that if people can't communicate, if they don't get each other, it's not going to work. Doesn't matter where everyone's physically located.
That makes a lot of sense. The last thing you want is to outsource something and just create a whole new set of headaches.
Exactly.
So we've talked about staff augmentation, BPO. SD Solutions has some other services worth mentioning too, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And some of them, they really show you how committed they are to helping companies go global.
Okay, like what?
Well, they offer this thing called Employer of Record Services, or EOR.
Employer of record.
Yeah, and it's a game changer for businesses that want to expand internationally. Because setting up legal entities in other countries, that is a nightmare.
Oh, tell me about it. Trying to figure out labor laws in a country you've never even been to.
It's the worst.
Yeah, it's enough to make anyone want to quit and open a lemonade stand.
Seriously.
Yeah.
So that's where SD Solutions steps in. They become the legal employer for whoever you hire in that other country.
Oh, interesting.
They handle the payroll, the benefits, all the legal stuff.
So basically, they make it possible for smaller companies or even startups to go global.
Exactly. Without all those roadblocks.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's a really smart approach. They also help set up R&D centers, which is great if you need a specific talent pool, like a hub just for your company's innovations.
Right, right.
And they've got programs for developing your minimum viable product and scaling up your startup.
Okay, so they're there for you at every stage.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But honestly, I think what truly makes them stand out is that global reach paired with like real local knowledge.
Their website mentions having a presence in a bunch of countries across Eastern Europe and Latin America.
Yeah, exactly.
What are the benefits of those locations, besides, potentially more affordable salaries? Well, for one thing, those regions, they each have their own strengths. Certain places are becoming hotspots for things like fintech or cybersecurity, And then there's the whole time zone advantage. Having teams in those areas often means you have more overlap with U.S. business hours, which makes communicating a whole lot easier.
So it's like you're not just tapping into this big global pool of workers. You're getting access to these little specialized hubs, each one with its own vibe. But like you were saying before, it's not just about skills on paper, right?
Right.
You got to have that cultural fit too. So how does SD Solutions make sure companies are building teams that can actually work well together, even when they're spread all over the world?
Well, they talk a lot about their dedicated local recruiters, and that seems to be a big deal. They're not just like robots reading off a script, These recruiters, they're actually living and working in those places. They get it.
So they can tell if someone's a good fit beyond just the resume.
Exactly. Like they understand those unspoken rules, the way people communicate in that specific place. And honestly, I think that's what makes SD Solutions so different. They get that this is about people, not just like filling slots.
It's about building something real.
Yeah, it's about those long-term, productive partnerships. And speaking of partnerships, they have some pretty big names on their website giving them rave reviews.
Yeah, like Wix and Plus500.
Exactly. And those aren't just any companies. These guys are major players, and they trust SD Solutions with a really important part of their growth, finding the right people.
That says a lot. It's one thing to talk a big game, but to have companies like that back you up.
Totally. That means you're doing something right.
So we've covered a ton today, from staffing up to outsourcing, going global to making those global teams actually work. But the question I keep coming back to, and maybe our listeners are too, is this. In a world where remote work and having teams all over is becoming the norm, what have we learned about actually making it work? Like, what's the secret sauce?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
It really is.
And there's no magic bullet, but looking at SD Solutions, I think what they really highlight is like, you got to be thoughtful about it. Talent's everywhere, sure, but finding the right talent for you, that takes something else. You got to understand the whole picture, but also like each individual piece of the puzzle.
It's about seeing the human side of it all.
Absolutely. Tech might bring us together, but it's the stuff that makes us human, shared goals, good communication, respecting each other. That's what actually makes those connections work, no matter where everyone's sitting.
So for anyone listening who's trying to build one of these global teams, maybe even feeling a little lost in it all, SD Solutions offers a really interesting approach to think about.
Yeah, definitely check them out. Explore their website a little. See what clicks.
We'll put a link in the show notes. And speaking of exploring, next week we'll be back with another deep dive. We'll be looking at a completely different company, seeing how they're tackling the future of work. Should be interesting to compare and contrast. Until then, keep those brains buzzing. And remember, no matter how fancy the tech gets, it's always going to be about the people.